Hi there, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Showalker, your host, and today we're going to be checking out this Alice Glass album, Pray For. Former Crystal Castles frontwoman Alice Glass departs Crystal Castles in 2014, drops some singles and an EP in 2017, slowly drops more songs until now in 2022 we have her first official full-length album. And this thing is really a doozy. There's a lot of really intense shit on this record. Alice basically states plainly her experiences with trauma and abuse in a direct and uncomfortable manner with her experiences with sexual assault. Glass takes these glitched out rave anthem style song formats and softens the edges for a really cathartic experience. There's still a lot of touches that are clearly meant to be callbacks to older material and bands that with the help of producer Jupiter Io from Health are made as catchy as possible while not shying away from the still beating heart that bleeds emotion all over this album. And at no point is there any attempt to soften the impact that these songs have with hair-raising titles like Pinned Beneath Limbs, Suffer and Swallow, or I Trusted You. Alice is working through some serious shit here, and in as many ways as this hurt is palpable, it seems that everything is meant to be followed along with. This release is a firm grasp back into the power of control, and I think a lot of this album is meant to give a helping hand to survivors of abuse. The track Pray kicks off this album with a heavy synth house beat with lyrics that feel like the inner thoughts of a person disassociating from their own body. Hard noise blares over the track like an assault on the listener with a huge blast at the end of the track. Pinned Beneath Limbs sees Alice in a desperate battle with her abuser with intense themes of gaslighting with lines like don't talk to your friends, don't talk to your family, don't talk to anyone, you're not worth believing. I'm really impressed with the way she's managed to channel these really just entirely horrifying events into just such lush and fantastic songs. There's a keen awareness in every moment of these tracks and like a very in-depth, in touch with her like listening bass that like there's like a finger on the pulse of how people are going to react to these. It's really brilliantly done. Love is Violence is another of these big hyper-pop ballads with more themes of rampant abuse and self-doubt. This song seems to relish in its misery in a kind of dance in the rain. The whole sound of the track is very liberating. Baby Teeth focuses in on self-harm and coping with abuse. And you know, it almost feels weird commenting on the catchiness of the tracks when pairing it with the subject matter of the songs. It really adds to the effect of discomfort because these songs are really well put together. But yeah, all of the songs' big dancey choruses are really high tier. The whole song is catchy as fuck and a great listen. Everybody else gets really deep into the roots of a deep emotional abuse. There's this whole theme of deserving punishment for being in an unfortunate situation and becoming a victim of cyclical abuse. It's really just hair-raising to listen to. And there's multiple times on this track where she talks about how she deserves this abuse and how she wants to like disappear and be erased as a person. It's almost like the snapshot of like trauma here in this moment is this moment of like complete apathy, like the mind is desperately trying to run away from the body. It's really gut-wrenching. The Hunted is a track that kind of lashes out at Alice's former abuser. The lyrics are a little bit more abstract than some of the other songs, but the chorus of Watch the Hunter Become the Hunted is pretty clear in its message. There's also a pretty intense spoken word moment at the end of the song about learning lessons from someone and taking to heart that when she sees someone suffering, she's just gonna sit back and smile. So it sounds like maybe the words from her to her like abuser in like a hypothetical situation, or maybe it's like something she was told that she is now repeating here. It's kind of hard to get, but I mean, you can kind of interpret it either way and it still works pretty well. Fair Game takes a look into abuse and gaslighting in relation to Alice's professional life. The main line in this song that repeats over and over is, "Where would you be without me?" And it just loops, really drilling it home. The last few lines are really fucked up too, with some intense drug references like she was kept on drugs or something. There's also like a mention of what sounds like a threat to her lifestyle, like, do you want to go back to living like you used to, which is pretty fucked up and controlling. Witch Hunt is a killer track with some amazing range just in style. Thematically, this song still leans into a lot of the stuff that we've touched on already. It kind of feels like that we're moving in almost like a chronological order of abuse. It seems that like the album is progressing through the anger and the sorrow and the frustration and just growing more desperate with each track. Suffer and Swallow seems to have a few meanings linked to the title. There's some obvious parallels between sexual abuse, but there's also this basic loss of just taking everything and swallowing your pride. This is one of the most hopeless songs on the album, which is pretty crazy because it is also one of the catchiest and swingiest on the album. Suffer in Peace is a quick track that slows the pace pretty nicely. This song is pretty heavy on isolation and wanting to be left alone with like your pain. It's a feeling that I'm sure is all too familiar to a lot of people from these kinds of situations. The worst is that it seems to be that like they're kind of personifying their trauma and like they want to isolate their trauma and be alone with it as much as they want to be alone from it. Like they have personified this suffering into like something that they want to be left alone from and separate themselves from. But I mean, it's so inherently linked that like, God, it's just a really, really tough listen. Animosity is another big noise pop track that blasts into the track listing, with the main driving beat being these huge bass walls spaced out by noise that drills through the mix. I do find a lot of this song to be really nice to listen to, but at this point it does kind of exhaust me a little by the time this song is up. It still is quite good though. I Trusted You might be the hardest punch to the gut on this album. This song falls into the waves of calm low end for one of the most dramatic tracks in this batch. And I think of all the songs here, this song may be the hardest to read into as it's one of the most painful songs here. The raw sentiment of this song is just pure, unfiltered depression. Sorrow Ends is a very fitting last track for this album. It doesn't really send things off with a bang, but that's not really what I would have wanted for this album anyway. This is a really great way to kind of glue that release of anger and frustration together. Like this is kind of the last gasp of like raw power to finish this statement of an album. So Pray For is not a perfect album. However, it is one of the rawest, most on the nose, and important albums I have heard. This album is the product of abuse, but not only that, is the product of abuse and the strength to overcome and rise to the challenge that is coping with this level of trauma. So before I rate this album, I would really just like to take a moment and just talk to anyone out there who might to hear it and say you're not alone, and that if you have not been a victim of the abuses that this album is so deeply connected and tied with, then I can promise you that you know someone who has been victimized. And if you'd like to support a good cause and a good organization that helps people in these kinds of unfortunate situations, I'd ask that you go and check out the RAIN organization. They're one of the largest anti-sexual violence organizations in the country, and Alice Glass has actively held charities for this organization in the past. So please maybe check them out, maybe consider donating to a good cause. The link to that is in the description below. It's a really strong cause that I believe in. You know, I've met a lot of people who've gone through these kinds of things, and you know, it's rough. Like it's a really awful situation, and if you guys, you know, maybe throw some money their way, that would be awesome. Pray For is a very well-deserved 9. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate the support that all of you have been showing for this channel. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and drop a like on this video. And if you would like to support the channel further, maybe check out my Reverb store. My Instagram links to those are also in the description below. Thank you all so much again for watching, and we'll see you on the flip side.